The Python's Bride. Part 7. Ojo turned and left the hut, her mind racing with the weight of what she had agreed to. Ada and Obi looked at her expectantly as she came out into the clearing. "We must return to the palace," Ojo said, her voice steady despite the turmoil in her heart. "I need to speak with my father. Nneka has made her demand." "What is her demand?" Ada asked. "The golden crown of Ukana," Ojo replied. Both Ada and Obi widened their eyes in shock as they stared at Ojo. "Let's go," Ojo said. Without another word, the trio began their journey back to Ukana, the forest around them seeming to close in, as if aware of the seriousness of their mission. The morning sun was now high in the sky, casting long shadows across the paths. As they worked, Ojo's mind was filled with thoughts of the golden crown, her father's legacy, and the heavy burden of her destiny. She knew the road ahead would be difficult, but she also knew she couldn't turn back now. When they returned to the palace, Ojo went straight to her father's chambers. The king's face turned pale when he heard Nneka's demand. "The golden crown," he repeated, his voice strained. "She asks for the symbol of my power, the very essence of my authority as king." "Yes, father," Ojo replied, her heart heavy with guilt. "But it is the only way to lift the curse and save me from marrying Ojadili." The king remained silent for a long moment, his mind racing with conflicting thoughts. Finally, he spoke. "Give me until nightfall to decide," the king said. The golden crown was something no king would joke with. They can sacrifice their lives to keep it safe until they transfer it to the next king. The princess was sad because they didn't have the luxury of time. 4 market days had already passed, and Ojadili would return in 3 market days to claim her. Despite the urgency, she respected her father's wishes and agreed to wait. That night, neither Ada nor Ojo could sleep. Elsewhere, some elders decided to take matters into their own hands. They journeyed to the dark forest to consult Ojadili, hoping to inform him of Ojo's plan. However, as they made their way through the thick forest, the god's wrath descended upon them. They heard a strange sound, an old man crying with a deep, mournful voice. The elders stayed calm but huddled together in fear. As they scanned the forest, trying to locate the source of the crying, a hot, burning dust suddenly descended on them, scorching their flesh. In agony, they ran back toward the village, but by the time they reached the village road, they collapsed. Their bodies began to decay, though none of them died immediately. Instead, they lay there, suffering. The following morning, the villagers gathered around the suffering elders. The king and the oracle were informed, and they, along with Ojo and Ada, went to see the elders. As they observed the grotesque scene, the oracle received a message from the gods. This is a punishment for their attempt to inform Ojadili of Ojo's plan. They will decay like this until they die. The oracle warned everyone not to touch them, as the curse would be transferred to anyone who did. Even their loved ones stayed back, horrified by the sight. It was clear that the gods were with Ada and Ojo. Eventually, everyone returned to their huts, and the elders continued to decay until death. In the palace, the remaining elders met with the king and the oracle to discuss Nneka's demand. The room was filled with a heavy silence. No one knew what to say or do. Even the oracle was quiet. When the king asked why he was silent, the oracle replied, "Because the gods have not spoken yet." With just 2 days left, Ada and Ojo met with the king, begging him to reconsider and give up the golden crown. They pleaded desperately, but the king remained resolute, unwilling to part with it. Heartbroken, Ojo ran to her hut in tears. It became clear to her that the king was willing to sacrifice her to Ojadili rather than give up the crown. That night, when everyone had fallen asleep, Ojo sat in her hut, lost in sorrow, when Ada suddenly walked in, holding the golden crown. Ojo jumped up in shock. "How did you get it from the king's secret chamber?" she asked. Ada shook her head, bewildered. "I don't know. It's a mystery to me as well. But the important thing is that we have it now. We must go back to Nneka." Without wasting any time, Ada and Ojo quietly left the palace, slipping away unnoticed, with the golden crown in hand. The forest was quiet, except for the soft sound of leaves underfoot as Ojo and Ada hurried through the undergrowth. The first light of dawn barely made its way through the thick canopy above them, casting long shadows as they worked. As they reached the edge of the forest, the first rays of sunlight began to break through the trees, lighting up the path ahead. Ojo paused, her breath catching in her throat as she looked at the road that would lead them back to Nneka's hut. "Are we doing the right thing?" she asked, her voice trembling with doubt. Ada placed a comforting hand on Ojo's shoulder. "We are doing what must be done," she said softly. "The gods have guided us this far. We must trust that they will continue to do so." With a nod, Ojo gathered her courage and continued working. The journey back to Nneka's hut felt longer this time, with the forest seeming to close in around them. The air was thick with tension, and even the birds and insects seemed to be holding their breath. When they finally reached the clearing, they found Nneka standing outside her hut, as if she had been waiting for them. Her sharp, knowing eyes immediately focused on the crown in Ojo's hands. "You have returned," Nneka said, her voice a mix of satisfaction and caution. "And I see you have brought what I asked for." Ojo stepped forward, holding it out for Nneka to see. The crown gleamed in the morning light, its intricate design a symbol of centuries of kingship. The sight filled the clearing with a quiet sense of awe. Nneka's eyes narrowed as she took in the crown's beauty. "The crown of Ukana," she murmured, reaching out with trembling hands to touch it. For a moment, her eyes softened, as if she were lost in a memory. Then, her expression hardened again. "You have done well, princess," she said, her voice stern once more. "But this is only the beginning." Ojo's heart sank at Nneka's words. "What more must we do?" she asked, her voice weary. Nneka gestured for them to follow her into the hut. Inside, the dim light of a flickering candle revealed the same clutter of herbs and strange objects as before. Nneka sat down on a mat, motioning for Ojo and Ada to sit across from her. "The path to restoring peace between Ukana and Okoji is not simple," Nneka began, her voice low and serious. "The crown is a powerful symbol. All the late kings of Ukana wore it, and even future kings will wear it. Presenting this crown to the ancestors of Okoji will show them that the ancestors of Ukana have come to beg for forgiveness. The ancestors shall communicate with each other in the land of the dead. If the ancestors of Ukana humble themselves and sincerely apologize, the golden crown will glow brighter, signifying that peace has been made. But if it doesn't glow within 2 nights after the apology is offered, then there's no hope. You will have to return the crown to your father and face Ojadili, accepting whatever outcome may come." Ojo was now filled with fear. She looked at Nneka speechlessly. Nneka closed her eyes for a moment, as if communing with the spirits. When she opened them again, her gaze was intense. "You must take the crown to the sacred grove of the Okoji people," she said. "There, under the full moon, you must offer it to the spirits of the ancestors. Only then will they be willing to listen to your plea for peace." Ada's eyes widened. "The sacred grove, but no one has set foot there in years. The place is said to be cursed." Nneka nodded solemnly. "The sacred grove is indeed a place of great power, and it is protected by the spirits of the Okoji ancestors. You must first appease our ancestors before the survivors. Many of our people were killed. Do you expect the dead to go without being apologized to? This is the first step. The sacred grove is the only place where the rift between our 2 peoples can be healed." Ojo's mind raced as she tried to process Nneka's words. The thought of entering the sacred grove filled her with fear. "What will happen once we offer the crown?" she asked. Nneka's expression grew darker. "The spirits will test your resolve," she said. "They may demand a sacrifice, a sign of your true commitment to the cause. You must be prepared for anything." Ada looked worried. "Another demand and sacrifice?" she asked, the weight of Nneka's words heavy on her heart.